Hey there, welcome to the show, first of all, and I'm excited to have back Pamela Means, who was also the guest last week. So hopefully you caught part one. This is part two. Pamela has a brand new album out, just released this month, Pamela Means and the Reparations, live at Northfire, and that was recorded in Amherst, Massachusetts, and Pamela is from the Western Massachusetts area. And we're certainly happy to have her back on the show. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump in with part two with Pamela Means. Talk about back in, I think it was 2006, you had an album that I absolutely love called Pamela Means Jazz Project Volume 1. And it's a very far apart from the music that we're hearing right now. And I'm a sucker for standards such as All of Me, Fly Me to the Moon, My Funny Valentine. I mean, I can listen to those over and over when a lot of times while I'm working, I'll have some sort of playlist on that plays those old jazz standards and things like that. But tell me just a little bit about kind of where your musical roots lie, because you're certainly amazing with that jazz album, and you've had other albums certainly that had jazz influences, and then also with the very political folk type songs that we've discussed and heard already. So kind of what is the what is your musical roots, and sort of how do you choose what sort of album you're going to do, whether it's going to be more of a jazz album or something like you've got currently?
Well, I initially evolved as a singer-songwriter, writing songs about, myself, my life, and I still do. And very quickly, I've been inspired by authors just as much as musicians. So my political awakening happened early on when I was exposed to the work of James Baldwin, Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, critical thinkers like that. And for me, it gave me words to articulate what I had already grown up experiencing living in Milwaukee and experiencing racism firsthand. Um, and also, the greatest artists always say, write what you know. And so I started to write what I knew, which was life through um, my own lens. And so by default, by being honest about that, I became a political songwriter. And to be honest, I really wasn't happy about it. I didn't want that. I wanted to play pop music and be a rock star and be on the cover of Rolling Stone and stuff like that. And not that I would say no to them if they called me up, but once I started writing political songs, I realized, oh, they're not going to want that. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't listen to that voice, and if I had that awareness and then still chose to write bubblegum music. Not, I love a good bubblegum song, but I had to go another path. And but all along, I always wanted to be a great musician. I went to a conservatory. I studied classical guitar, which I'm very grateful to have done. I studied jazz at the same time. Had no idea what I was doing at that time. It was over my head. I tried to push through. I did really poorly, and then just kind of started my songwriter career anyway. So who cares? I sucked at jazz. I don't care. I don't need you, jazz. And and then I started my songwriter deal, moved to Boston from Milwaukee, gradually found a way to start touring. And along the way, I've always loved really great music and great songwriters and great musicians. And I hated jazz when I studied it when I was 18. It was just like a lot of noise. Like, what is this? and shrill and disturbing. And then I heard a Lester Young record, and I thought, oh, jazz can be mellow and beautiful, and you can detect the melody of the standard that they're playing. Wow, really? And realized I had already been listening to Billie Holiday and somehow wasn't counting that as jazz. But I already loved jazz when I realized I didn't have to be adapted yet to bebop. I could appreciate that skill, but a good song is a good song. And Billie Holiday, Anita O'Day, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, all tremendous vocalists. Um, so that started to open up. And then I also realized how disciplined every single jazz musician is, and classical player. And rock and pop, you can get away with knowing 5 chords for your whole life, not in jazz. And I wanted to be like that. And I think my playing as a guitarist, I just wanted to get better, and I wasn't really sure how. And I dug out my old jazz homework and kind of started to teach myself what I couldn't understand the first time, but with a much newer and bigger level of appreciation, because I finally understood why it was so hard. Why, I just wanted to be well versed and be a good musician. I also never wanted to be the girl in the band, and I had experiences where I was at jams and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a 1 4 5 and C. Just jump in." And I'd be like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I didn't want to be like that anymore. I would be like, "Yeah, okay. What's that CFG you got over there? Okay, yeah. Let's move it to B flat. How about that? B flat, E flat, F. How about that?" And and it feels really good to be empowered like that. Um, so I just had this idea one summer, after slowly, painfully learning some jazz stuff. First, just learning some new chords. I made a goal of learning enough songs to have a gig one summer, and it was bad. I had a roommate at the time. I feel bad for her. It was pretty bad. But I did it. I learned a dozen songs. I had a jazz gig. And then it wasn't really until after that that I thought, I could do this again. I've already learned these songs now, and just kind of kept going from there. And because I just want to be a great musician, and it's a lifelong journey to work toward becoming one, and I want to have as many gigs as possible. I sort of just divided myself in two, and so I can be a jazz person. You would have no idea that I do this other stuff, or I can do this, and you would have no idea that I do the jazz. I can do a crossover if I want, and I've actually got volume 2 already recorded. I have a couple other albums already up my sleeve, and that's part of why I released this album anyway in the middle of the pandemic, because what am I gonna do? And maybe people will always need art, especially if they're home all the time. And I want to move forward so that I can release these other albums that I have ready to go in the next couple of years.
Not only are you very adept at, like you said, both the jazz and kind of the political folk genres, but I had seen the video that you have where Pamela Means performs the Beatles' Abbey Road, and that's a whole different kind of ball game. And you talked about sort of the pop things that you liked and good songwriters, and obviously the Beatles fall into that category, but that's yet another aspect to your talents, skills, interests is doing the entire Abbey Road album solo. So kind of how did that idea come about?
Thanks for bringing it up. Kind of like jazz. I mean, it comes from wanting to be a good musician, a great musician, and not that I claim to be, but I'm always working to be and become. And so I took a long hiatus from touring, and I wanted to still challenge myself creatively. And I'm always practicing jazz. There's just never an end to practice jazz. But I wanted something different and a little bit out of my comfort circle, comfort zone. And I think Abbey Road was the first Beatles album I ever heard when I was 14. And not that I really knew who the Beatles were, or I was like, oh, this album is incredible. I just have a very distinct memory of actually my friend who made me listen to it with him, and he pretended to do the drum solo on his bedspread. So that's my memory of when I first heard Abbey Road. And the medley section sounded, and it is, so intricate and incredible and bonkers. I thought I'm gonna try to learn it, and I didn't have any other goal other than proving to myself whether or not I could learn it just on my own, in the privacy of my home. And I had a dream to perform it, but I just wanted to see if I could learn it. And it took 8 months. 8 months. I learned it in order because I'm anal retentive, and it took 8 months. And then I forgot it, and I just put it away and moved on. And a couple years went by, and I learned that the 50th anniversary of Abbey Road was coming up, which was last year. So I relearned it and started to book a few gigs to make that dream come true. And then, kind of like jazz, after I did it the first time, I thought, well, I could do this again. So I already learned it now.
Right. I hear you. Well, it's fantastic. I would encourage for people. In fact, I'll link it. I found it online somewhere, so I'm sure I can find it again and link to it. But again, it's yet another of your talents, and I would love for you to play something else, maybe in the jazz realm, just to give our viewers a taste of. Not only can you do the stuff from the new album, but you're an amazingly skilled and talented jazz singer and player as well. So would love to hear something, if you could pull something out for us.
That's another thing I like about the jazz, is that I don't have to be me, and I don't have to have the heaviness of I wrote this. How you feel about it? Like, just be a musician, just play good music someone else wrote. Try to do some justice to it, and enjoy it.
Right.
It's not as fraught.
Yeah.
So here's one one that I've played, that I still play pretty regularly. I think it will be on Jazz Volume 2. I recorded a bunch. So the first volume is a trio. The second is just me and this Martin, solo acoustic jazz album. So this is from 1955. It's called In the Wee Small Hours. In the wee small hours of the morning, when the whole wide world is fast asleep, you lie awake and think about the girl. Never think of counting sheep when your lonely heart has learned its meaning. You'd be hers if only she would call. In the wee small hours of the morning, that's the time you miss her most of all. You lie awake and think about the girl. Never think of counting sheep when your lonely heart has learned its lesson. You'd be hers if only she would call in the wee small hours of the morning. That's the time you miss her most of all.
Fantastic. I do love that song, and I would encourage people to go out to Bandcamp or wherever they're looking for music and look for volume one of your jazz collection. There's some fantastic songs on there. A completely different vibe than your current album, the Live at Northfire album, but really good music nonetheless. And I'm looking forward to volume two.
Yeah,
And
like you said, I'm two people. If I could have two full schedules as jazz and songwriter, I would.
yeah, yeah, it's fantastic, and it's amazing how good you are at each one. Um, so I'll kind of start wrapping up a little bit with kind of circling back to politics just a bit and kind of the state of things. But I mean, we're essentially days away from the election, and even before the unfortunate passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I know that you've been very interested in and monitoring Trump's judicial nominees, not just Supreme Court, but judicial nominees in general. Kind of what can you tell us about how, from what you've seen, the judicial system has been stacked over the past 4 years?
I don't even really think that we're all aware of it. I feel like once he's out of office, we're going to find out the extensive damage that we didn't know about, including federal courts, circuit courts being stuffed with conservatives, and their prerequisite that whoever they would nominate would be anti-choice and uh, I think what happened, part of what happened is that there's so many things, Tim. But I think back in the 80s, early 90s, as far as I have learned, Republicans, first of all, we need more than two parties in this system because they're basically the same. They're basically the same. The Democrats just don't say so many overtly hateful things, and they at least feign that they want to make a better life for the rest of us. Some of them are genuine, I believe, and there perhaps are probably good people that vote Republican. But what has taken over the Republican Party, as far as I have seen, is a lot of hatred, a lot of anti-U.S. sentiment, anti-immigrant, anti-poor, all that. But anyway, I think that there was a concerted effort to, with the Republicans, to take over every level of government that they could, starting from the school board on up. And meanwhile, progressive and the Democrats were like, hey, what's on Netflix next week, and wake up 30 years later, and like there's so many Republican state legislatures and even small level municipal government. So, and certainly there are people who have been working their butts off all this time. But I think I was part of that was why I was inspired to see so many people protesting this summer. So I hope that will continue. And it's kind of like a numbers game. I still believe there are a lot more good-hearted people, a lot more people who do not want to see him be reelected, and we need to just show up. And the evidence, the proof that we're out there is all the money, energy, and effort being spent to enhance voter suppression across the country. Because if we don't vote, well, then he is going to get in there. But if we show up, you can't, we could steamroll over him just the way that he attempted to steamroll over Biden through that debate, and just snowball the every ballot center with our ballots. That was not well said, but we need to step up. We need to just show up. Yeah.
Right. Well, let me finish, I guess, with because we've certainly talked about some of the ills that are facing our country currently, and so I guess we'll end with sort of where do we go from here? In your opinion, this is a big ask. How does this nation begin to heal itself?
Well, first put Biden in office so that on day one they can undo some of the biggest things we know about, like the the global agreements that the U.S. has pulled out of under Trump. So that's the first thing, but that's not it by a long shot. I would say everyone should become more involved at every level, just like they have, from our neighborhoods and municipal school boards, city watch, whatever there is. Show up and get involved, especially younger people. There needs to be. Well, again, we need more than two parties in this system, but there also needs to be a great effort to get young people and everyone who's become so jaded over the years to realize that our votes really do count. They're trying to make it seem like it doesn't and spreading all kinds of lies and disinformation, but they really do count. So we show up. And also, I would like to see the Electoral College banished and gone forever. That's a bunch of bullshit right there. That's left over. It's a relic of slavery. It's like saying, no, you people are too poor or black or dumb to vote. We'll take care of it. We don't need that anymore, if the country even ever really did. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, being a guest on the show, express both your feelings and concerns, as well as play your music, which is fantastic. I will mention one more time, Pamela Means and the Reparations live at Northfire. Hopefully everyone will go out and look at that. There'll be links below. And I would love if you would kind of play us out. If you have another song, either from the album or anywhere, whatever you feel is an appropriate ender, I would love for you to kind of play us out and end the show with some of your fantastic music.
Well, I have a brand new song that I wrote, since the George Floyd protests began, and also I just want to mention about the protests and the whole talking points about there shouldn't be any rioting and breaking out the windows and stuff. That I think that's an easy excuse to stop listening to the reason people are out in the street, and you have to get past that. And I saw a speaker at a rally say, when they first started in Minneapolis, and then the city sent police to protect Target and big stores like that. And I saw a Black Lives Matter speaker say, forget those stores. They should be out here with us. And meanwhile, all the small mom and pop shops were not protected during that time. So,
Right.
So anyway.
I agree. I do that exact noise about 18 times a day now. So I understand.
Maybe that song is my answer to what we should do, because it's short and to the point, and it's called Time to Tear It All Down. My country, 'tis of thee, what's the matter with you? Handing out liberty for the privileged few. No justice for the rest of us, even crooked and cruel. Time to tear it all down and build something new. Time to tear it all down and build something true. We've been saying it for years, now the video shows it. Reason for rage and tears and fears, now everybody knows it. No more thoughts and prayers, rhetoric is through. Truth and reconciliation, reparations are due. My country, 'tis of thee, let me holler at you. Plenty opportunity for the privileged few. Roadblock for black, brown, poor, even callous and cruel. Time to tear it all down and build something new. Time to tear it all down and build something true.